Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. I want to start this episode by shouting out the funniest thing I saw in any anime this week, which was a bit from the latest Megan Thee Stallion music video that dropped this week.
God damn it! New one? Man,
yes, yes. So she dropped the video for Neva Play featuring RM, who's one of the guys from BTS. And there's a lot of actual like animated anime inspired action scenes in it.
Sure.
Okay.
And
Korea, well known for its anime.
Well, this is part of her brand. A lot of this album, actually almost all of this album, the videos have been very Japan centric. But anyway, This one has actual anime in it. And there's one bit where her anime character starts twerking and starts shooting out these like butterfly energy shockwaves that destroy a bunch of dudes.
Okay.
And for some reason, I don't know why, it was so stupid. I just was cackling when I was watching this. But
I mean, that's barely a parody, quite frankly. That there is definitely an anime out there where that just straight up happens.
Shout out to
what was that?
Yeah, I think you were on the same.
Life. Or
No.
No. We're Joe. We're on the same way, but we're thinking of that one anime, right?
Yeah.
Where they fight with their butts.
Yeah,
Keijo.
Yes.
Keijo, yeah.
Show you cans.
It was very. I mean, this had actual energy blasts, but well, no. You know what? Keijo did have shout out to
the Shinku butt cannon.
Shout out to the gate of booty lawn.
Right. Yes.
Remember that?
Some good translation on that show.
They did Hell in Heaven one time. I don't remember what it was called, but they did.
So what we're gathering here is like, do we need to somehow get clips of Keijo in front of Megan Thee Stallion and like? Oh, I thought you were going to say, do we need to get Megan Thee Stallion on this podcast?
I feel like, I mean, I could try. I don't know about that one, but I feel like there's like at least a 60% chance she has seen it already, or has seen.
I don't know.
I'm not saying she sat. I'm not saying she sat and watched the entire anime. I'm saying she would has. There's probably a chance she would have at least seen a clip or
okay, sure, maybe
a GIF or something from it.
At the risk of starting a new rap beef, I'm gonna say Megan Thee Stallion's taste in anime is probably extremely basic.
She's really into it, though. I mean, all the stuff she references is very, but you never know.
I bet she hasn't even seen Angel's Egg once.
Yeah, I mean, she does appear at every Crunchyroll's Anime Awards, but like she actually goes to them. But
that's cool. But yes.
Anyway,
it's. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like most celebrities who are anime fans. Look, man, I have said my piece about Michael B. Jordan. Seems like a swell dude. Like. That dude has really simple taste in anime.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I guarantee somebody in her mentions posted a clip from Keijo at some point.
Sure. Was it Drake?
And it might have been Drake.
Jesus Christ.
Drake's dead, so it doesn't matter.
No, they're gonna bring him back from the dead in New Orleans so he can be killed again at the Super Bowl next year.
Yes. Yes. I hope they find some way to. I'm sure they will find some way to perform not like us at the Super Bowl, and the thought of billion people yelling A minor makes me very happy. But anyway, we're getting way off track here. Shout out to Megan once again. I don't think you were here for the other podcast we talked about her, but
I don't think I was. But yes.
I think that was one of the ones. I think that you were out for that one, but. Anyway, we got anime to talk about. This is kind of the final stretch of the summer season here. We're in a bit of a weird place where it's a little too early to do the preview show, but also the timing is going to be weird. But we'll see how all that goes for next time. But for today. So basically, this is going to be kind of our last chance to get any, predictions or anything in place before the end of the season. Not that many of these shows maybe require that, but we'll get into it. But to introduce everybody, I'm Jel. We are joined by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
still with us.
Despite the blistering heat in the greater Los Angeles area as of right now.
Are you still plugging away at Fate Stay Night? I saw you finish.
Yeah, I finished the Fate route of Fate Stay Night. I got the little text in the corner that says a new route has been unlocked. I went back through and kept Saber's affection points low so that she kills you at the end. The hard to get bad end that you have to try to get.
I love the Unlimited Blade Works route.
Yeah. Yep.
You're gonna 100% this one, huh? Yeah.
I did before. I'll do it again.
Does it have achievements?
Yes.
Okay.
There are Steam achievements. Something like
trading cards.
Yes, I sold all my Steam trading cards as I do with every game. I got a cool 25 cents for Saber.
Hell yeah.
That's how much the once great king of England is worth now, huh?
I spent all those gems and still didn't get Saber.
The Steam what are they actually called? The pictures or whatever that you sell that you're just
they're called trading cards.
Yeah.
They're actually called yes.
Yep.
Right. Making NFTs before NFTs existed, but yes. Worth about the same now.
Yep.
All right. We're also joined by G.
Well, unlike Eero, I would like to say my condolences and rest in peace to Brazilian Miku, 2024 to 2024. You will be dearly missed.
She's no longer allowed back in the country.
Another heartless victim of Elon Musk.
As Brazilian Miku has been banned from from Twitter.
It was her life was short but meaningful.
Yes. Shout outs to in some ways Hatsune Miku's absolutely like bewildering endurance in the culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how is Miku like back in the public spotlight again?
She's never gone away.
Miku never left, man. She's
among the collective unconscious.
Miku is so popular at the moment. I've been seeing some Blackrock Shooter fan art. Like,
okay, see, Blackrock Shooter, that's going back, but Miku has never gone away. Yeah, I will never forget. It was a couple years ago now, but just walking to a store that had some Miku merch and these like 2 10-year-old girls walking and be like, "It's her! It's the queen! We have to buy this!"
Jesus,
man,
she has never lost her. She has never lost her relevance. But anyway.
What does that make her like? Does that make her like the Beyonce of anime waifus or something? Just like has never actually gone out of style.
Yeah,
she
exactly.
Was always
She's
still
omnipresent, always at the top. Yeah. But even surviving the VTuber thing, she is still at the top. But G, you won the whole country Miku thing with your like nationless Miku. So that's
yes, my Ace Combat Miku.
Yeah, Ace Combat Miku. So
officially gone viral.
That actually ended it there. So all right, and we are joined back to back episodes with by Zig.
Wish I could be nationless, quite frankly.
Well, I have never played Ace Combat, so I don't have any good follow-up quotes for that. But,
okay, here's like the
does the color of the sky mean anything special to you?
we can't do this. We cannot do this now.
The quick and easy speed run to eliminate all nations is first you need to become an ace fighter pilot. Mm-hmm. All right. Once you have done that, you need to acquire the world's arsenal of nuclear weapons.
Oh, simple.
Okay, now once you've done that, you need to acquire a jet plane with a railgun.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've done that, you simply need to launch you need to launch that nuclear arsenal at every major nation on the planet.
Wait, are you using the railgun to launch the nukes?
No, you're using that to fight off your best friend / former comrade who you betrayed after becoming cynical and weary of the state of the world as a result of the war you fought together.
And you can't do that with conventional weapons. You need the railgun.
Yes, you need the railgun.
Well, it's
I just realized how ignorant that was.
Jet fighters are only weak to railguns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
I think the Demon King of the Round Table could take Saber, the King of Knights.
I would kind of love to play Ace Combat someday, but I feel like I would enjoy the vibes a lot more than the actual game. But
do you think the Ace Combat railgun is in the Gate of Babylon?
The Gate of Bootylon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that plane, that prototype plane, is literally called. I think it's called Avalon. I think it's the Avalon prototype.
I mean, because you're fighting over the round table. Like,
yes, because the whole because Ace Combat 0 is round table themed.
I mean, the good thing about King Arthur stuff is that it's like vaguely meaningful religious symbolism that you can use without insulting anybody. So, it tends to crop up a lot, especially.
And of course, the aircraft is the Morgan.
Oh, it's Morgan, right? Yes, that's what it is.
Right. Okay,
his aircraft wants to sleep with its half brother.
Yes, it is the ADFX-02 Morgan prototype.
That makes a lot of sense.
And you didn't even let me get to the best part, which is then you have to explain to your rival that you see by launching all these nuclear missiles at every major nation on the planet, you'll be resetting things to 0. Get it? Because it's Ace Combat 0.
We can never again allow 0 to become 1.
Japanese writers are the bravest people on the planet. They have no fear in their hearts.
Oh, that's fantastic.
These combat rolls.
All right. Well, shout out to Ace Combat then.
Yep.
Let's get into our topics for today.
Let's move on to something grounded in reality.
Yeah. So we're going to start. We talked last time about the end of one Kamen Rider, and in between episodes, we've had the start of another Kamen Rider. You can check out Zig's post on it at thegloryblog.com. But why don't you guys tell us about the new Kamen Rider here, Kamen Rider Gavv? Is that how we're going to say that?
Yeah, Gavv from down the pub.
Yeah.
God,
it's I think in the katakana it's Gabu, like you're chomping,
like gobble.
Yeah.
So should it be like GABU? Like,
I mean,
the history of
is an imperfect song.
I mean,
okay.
in the currently airing Super Sentai, the official romanization is different from the spelling they use in the show itself. So let's say that they're not super consistent on this stuff.
We're in like a first children situation at this point.
Is that where like Gabumon comes from?
Maybe because
he's got those big chompers.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, this one looked weird.
Also, he died for our sins.
Yes, so of course.
Yes. This Kamen Rider is
it's weird, man.
It's snack themed.
Right, you guys mentioned that. Yes.
The new Kamen Rider is an alien or some kind of creature came from space, and instead of a belt that puts armor on him, he has a weird organ on his stomach that looks like a belt. And when he eats snacks, it's his belt organ spits out little living plastic toy snacks and
the merch.
Yes, the called Munchkins, and then to transform, he eats them again.
So does he always have the mouth, the organ?
Yes.
Like, even in human form?
Not only does he have the mouth organ, he has a special windbreaker which has an unzippable stomach panel, so he can expose it. And then he
thought of everything.
Then he turns a little crank like it's a barrel organ. And I desperately need somebody who has more video editing skill than me to just dub "Pop Goes the Weasel" over it. So every time he turns it's really weird. Like even by Tokusatsu standards.
Yeah, the thing. We've talked about this before, where even Tokusatsu with strange theming can still have good stories. Kamen Rider Gavv, which as notably has a very good story about the fate of mankind and the meaning of strength, etc., is about fruit samurai having dance battles.
One moment it's an allusion to Paradise Lost, and the next moment somebody's being hit over the head with a huge banana.
Right. So like the theming of Gavv interesting and sort of separated from the aesthetic. I think
we should note that like the monsters this time around seem to be from the same race as Shoma, the main character, but they just have like regular mouths in their stomachs as opposed to something which is blatantly not a mouth but a toy.
They think it's weird. I think the implication is because he appears to be a half whatever the heck he is. His mother was human. So the monsters are like turning humans into gummy candy and then becoming monsters by eating that candy, right? Was it like the dark confections? Like,
something like that there.
And so it's like, if you, in a vacuum, it's like, yeah, these monsters are here, they're eating people, and our hero is one of them, but doesn't want to eat people because his mother was a people. And so he'll fight them, right? And so it's like, oh, this could be like a cool, dark, like violent, like Kamen Rider, where, you know, and there hasn't been a bio-themed rider in a while, but then the actual aesthetic and theming is so obnoxiously day glow, kitty, and like
it feels like somebody transplanted a Willy Wonka movie into a
right, because I guess it's like you again, like, so I did look up some images and I'll comment on those in a second, but like in a vacuum, you guys describing this to me, right? I almost go like, oh, is this some kind of like bio horror themed Kamen Rider? Like this dude, like, because you guys talk about this dude having an organ on his fucking stomach, and I'm thinking, oh, it's like some kind of like messed up mouth or something. And then I look up the belt, and you know what it kind of looks like? It kind of looks like God, what's his name? It's like Rofuyo's lute, Ryoga. It's like if you like. It's like you stretched out the aspect ratio of his face like 300%.
You mean they look similar in the sense that both are highly toyetic pieces of merchandise? Then yes,
yeah, with a mouth on it.
yeah.
I mean, I think like I think the thing is, like, they're like, everybody always likes to reminisce that, like, oh, back in the Showa era, the Kamen Riders were dark and brutal and gory.
Incredibly silly.
They were not. They were always incredibly silly. You know, I just think that, like, they would have been slightly less garish in the presentation of it back then. You know, I will say, like, I said this at the end of my piece as well. It's weird, and that's different, and different is generally good because these shows are so formulaic. Anything which changes up the formula in any way is interesting, at least. Having said that, I hate this aesthetic. And like, look, like saying I don't like the design, so it's a bad show is stupid, and I'm not going to say that, but it is a visual medium.
It's a visual medium. Yes.
Yeah. And, you know,
I think that's valid.
I'm not feeling this one so far, you know, and there's all sorts of stuff. Like, I should clarify, by the time this goes out, episode 2 will have aired, but when we're recording this, we've only seen the first episode.
Yeah.
The first episode of all tokusatsu shows are so cookie cutter, you know, because it's always, you know, throw in a cool fight, get the merch on screen so you can start selling it, and
make sure he rides a motorcycle for 10 seconds to fulfill the title of the show, and then it never comes back.
Yeah. But, you know, so my first impression was kind of mixed. I think there's some interesting ideas, but it is like, even by Kamen Rider standards, it's so garish and so like very obviously toyetic that it's a bit hard to swallow. Also, we're back to belts which just say a billion things.
Right.
Like I linked it in my post, but that one Twitter post about what Reiwa era Kamen Rider belts sound like, it just will not shut up. So it kind of feels like, despite the darker themes, they might be skewing a little younger on this one. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, you know, it's one thing if it's interesting for one episode, but is it like going to be like you got a whole year of having to watch this, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Are you going to be able to last for an entire year on this?
We'll see, right? Like, the thing about these shows is you need a good 6 to 10 episodes, I think, to like start to like actually evaluate them.
To know the true shape of a Kamen Rider,
because they are, as Zig said, like so formulaic,
right?
Yeah.
So I guess
we will definitely give it more episodes. Like, I don't have a great feeling about it out of the gate, but I also didn't have a great feeling about Gotchard out of the gate, and that went on to be pretty good for about half its run. So, you know, like somewhere on the site there is a first look of Kamen Rider Gavv from 11 years ago, where I'm like, I don't know about this one, Chief, and you know that went on to be one of the best shows I've ever seen. So, very hard to say, but not the strongest foot forward.
Yeah. People already have a running tally of how many of his little creatures have given their lives to power him up. Float away like dead Pikmin, like, and everything, like little angel wings and shit.
That's pretty.
They are being consumed.
That's weird.
It's weird. Yeah, that's weird. I don't have a good pithy comment.
The whole thing is weird.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll check back in. We've got a whole year to.
Oh yes.
To evaluate that one, but that's weird. All right. Let's move on and chat about Elusive Samurai. Zig, did you have something specific you wanted to bring up on this, or did you have any?
I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, I'm still watching it. Really, it's still very boilerplate shonen-y. You know, like the end of this current arc involves our hero fighting the big evil slaver guy, and his sidekicks fighting the bad guy's sidekicks, and it just degenerates into shonen cliche so fast that especially the sidekick stuff, where like they're talking about like powering up and overcoming their kind of like weaknesses, and it's like, I don't know who you people are. You literally appeared out of nowhere, and you have no backstory.
It's probably not going to mean anything anyway if they're a sidekick, right? Like,
kind of, yeah. It's still fun, you know. I think they like the actual fighting is great. They do still do a lot of fun visual stuff.
I saw that clip of the kid like running around some dude. And they animated the like. What is the term for it? Right, when like something's moving so fast the camera can't keep up. Like the after images,
like ghosting,
the ghosting. Like they didn't like. It's like, man, like they didn't just like use like they didn't just use like After Effects. It's like they literally hand animated the ghosting effects of this kid running so fast that the camera can't keep up. And I'm just like, man, that's really impressive visually.
Yeah, it looks really nice. And again, it's not just like technical stuff. There's also some really like fun use of camera angles and like extreme close-ups, Dutch angles, all of that kind of stuff to keep it very visually stimulating in every sense. You know, I think there's some fairly good gags. There's been a gif going around of like the main kid dancing in showers of blood, which is a good visual joke, and you know, stuff like that. So like it's one of those shows that like you appreciate in the moment, but it sort of vanishes into nothing the moment,
right?
As well,
yeah.
You know, and I just want to acknowledge, I'm enjoying it. I think your tolerance for it will depend very much on how worn down you have been by successive years of shonen stuff.
Yeah,
you know? Right. I would not describe it as particularly deep or incredibly meaningful in any sense other than, oh hey, Cloverworks can make really good looking shows.
Yep.
Are there any other shows this season that we would prefer to get this kind of technical treatment with the
weird
animation?
Oh, weird, yeah. If only there was another.
If there was another
anime.
Yeah, if only there was another.
Ramen Akaneko could really use this level of animation.
Oh my god, yes. The quality has dipped so much of that show that
I would like to see the cats dancing.
Funnily enough, we'll get there, but I do think, like, weirdly enough, the quality of Sengoku Youko has sort of bounced back a little.
Okay. Yeah.
But
I actually wasn't even thinking about. I wasn't like trying to set you guys up for that. I was literally just thinking off the top of my head.
Man.
And
you
I thought you just teed that up.
as soon as you guys started talking, I was like, oh wait, that show is airing this season. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I mean, yeah, it sounds like there's something to appreciate there, at least on the technical level. And I guess if it isn't awful, it's just kind of,
it is a perfect 3-star show.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever you go. Using Iroh's strict, you can only pick 1 to 5 stars scale. Are we going to give it a 3? Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It is comfortably above average without ever threatening to go beyond that.
Although Iroh, are you going to beg to differ on that one?
No, I think because of the quality of the animation, I would put it at 3 stars. Right? It's just I feel like, and maybe I'm likely off base here, perhaps, but I sort of feel the tides going. Like all the people who've been all the youngins who've been kicked off My Hero Academia and Jujutsu Kaisen rides for being too short are starting to flock to this. I think I'm getting that vibe.
So this is going to be their sort of a baby's first shonen show.
I don't know. I'm preparing myself for this to be the new Golden Boy of Shonen Jump. Maybe it won't
not the Golden Boy of anime, because the Golden Boy of anime is very different.
Yes, you know what I mean. The Golden Child.
Yes. I mean, I'm not as plugged into social media these days, but I don't feel like I've seen anybody really talking.
I don't know. I've had a few conversations on social media lately about anime that made me go, "Oh, I'm so old."
Yeah.
If I was a betting man, I would probably, and I'll admit I'm somewhat biased here. I would probably put my money on DeDeDeDe airing next season, probably being that filling in that vacuum.
I feel like Kaiju number 8 kind of has that position currently. That is Shonen Jump, right?
Yeah,
it is, and I think it did for a kind of a hot minute there, but I don't think it quite saw the same sort of Jujutsu Kaisen or Demon Slayer-esque explosion. Yeah.
But I've definitely I've seen a few people state completely unironically, if somebody likes Kaiju number 8, they're cool. I'm okay, kid.
The reason why I don't think that this will be like a big thing on that level is that it's kind of unusual in that this is literally a show about very literal children, which is not really something you see much anymore.
Not as common in shonen anymore, right?
Let me rephrase earlier. Then I think it will be their snack before the big one shows up, right?
Yeah, sure. But I feel like to be like a massive breakout, you need edgy teens.
You're right. You're right. I would agree with that. Reflecting upon it for 10 more seconds.
I am enjoying it. I think that I think that it has like a fun sort of carefree vibe to it. But again, substance basically zero.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's. Like I said, it's at least there's something there though.
Yeah,
to work
absolutely.
With. So yeah, let's move along.
Speaking of happy, carefree shows,
yes.
Oh yeah,
let's talk about Nier Automata version 1.1a second season, which has somehow become one of the most interesting shows this season for me.
Pour one out for Pascal.
Oh yeah, I mean, pour one out for more than just Pascal this time around, But yes, Nier Automata, the last 2 episodes have basically been the culmination of the Pascal and the Machine Village arc. So, to kind of give a brief summary, right, at this point in the story, A2 has kind of, the sheer precociousness of the Machine Village is wearing down her icy exterior, and A2 grows to appreciate and legitimately come to care for Pascal in the Machine Village, right? Kind of giving her a new lease on life, allowing her to kind of rediscover her long lost sense of humanity and sense of self. And so Yoko Taro is naturally like, all right, I'm going to smash it with a hammer now. So we're going through those events. So yes, the machine village, the village of peaceful machines, come under attack by the machines that are still under the network, and so the thing that's kind of really interesting is like the Nier Automata anime at this point has really kind of come into its own as a piece of media that like understands that because it is no longer a video game, it is no longer beholden to video game concessions, and thus can kind of engage in things that like you really can only do in more passive forms of media. So like basically the changes that happen here is like the village gets attacked, right? And so like the villagers flee. But this time, rather than flee to like an abandoned warehouse, like in the like factory zone of the game, they actually do something that seems in some ways a lot more sensible. They send the villagers to the resistance camp with the allied androids, right? Because Lily is friends with A2. Lily knows the machine village and Pascal. And so it just makes sense to send the children to what is obviously a safe haven protected by the resistance, right?
I don't like where this is. I don't like where this is going.
You think, yes, you know what? The kids might make it, right? Because they'll be protected by the resistance.
I mean, it's well known that the resistance survive all the way through Nier Automata the game, so they should be fine.
Yes, yes, exactly. I mean, yeah, you see the resistance alive and well at the end of Ending D, so naturally. Yep. But anyways, so then you get the cool moment where A2 and Pascal fight the angles, the Goliath machines, right? The really big ones, right? A2 goes sicko mode, berserker mode.
Yep.
She's throwing her ass all around,
oh yeah.
Wait, is this a Keijo crossover?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, if somebody asked Yoko Taro, they would put 2B in Keijo. Like,
yes, yeah, he would. no shame about it, right?
It's anything for money.
Yes. It's a well animated sequence. It's a lot of fun. Pascal obviously shows up later, taking over the other Goliath machine.
Yep,
it's very good. Kick. Does a rider kick? Yes. It's all awesome. It's like hell yeah, brother, we did it.
We saved the day. Everything was cool.
And then we cut back to the Resistance, in which it seems that the Resistance is now also falling victim to the logic virus infection, spread to them by one of the children of the machine village who was infected during the attack. And this all kind of culminates in the complete and absolute destruction of the Resistance. They all like either get infected or die fighting their like infected comrades. Pascal returns right to the Resistance and finds once again the machine village children dead, except this time rather than committing suicide, they have all been gruesomely devoured and eaten alive by the infected child. In this version of events, Pascal embraces the child and just self-destructs, taking them out together. And
I think that makes for a more interesting spectacle for an anime, but I do think it loses some of the thematic resonance of the
potentially. But I will say, let me finish.
Sure, go for it.
Let me finish my summarization here, and then I can kind of get into like why I think this actually really works. And the episode kind of ends with Lily being the last survivor of the Resistance, but she is also now infected with the logic virus, and thus A2 must once again perform a mercy killing on someone she cares deeply for. And that is now the end of both the Machine Village and the Resistance camp, as now 9S and A2 prepare for their eventual confrontation at the Machine Tower. And at least for me, the reason why I think this works really well for me as an adaptation of Nier Automata is we all know what happens to the Machine Village. Those of us who have played Nier Automata. Mm-hmm. The Resistance makes it out of the game unscathed, almost uncharacteristically for Yoko Taro, But the more you think about it, the more sense it makes in a video game. The Resistance is where you buy your weapons and items from, right? The vendors are there. Like, it's a safe save spot, right? Like, because of the concessions of what a video game is, the Resistance kind of has to survive the entire events of the game.
Right.
So, like, the show deciding to kill them off too kind of makes sense because you're not playing A2 in the anime version of these events. And it is a good choice to throw in for those of us who go in expecting, oh man, can't wait to watch these machine kids get killed again. And so, like, having the Resistance get taken out too, especially because this anime has spent multiple episodes on the A2 flashback, where A2 developed her relationship with Lily, like, gives this moment an additional amount of emotional resonance that the games kind of could not accomplish because they didn't have the A2 flashback, or at least not a fully fleshed out version in the games. So I do agree that, like, maybe the way the kids go out in this version of events, and like A2 not being given the choice of what to do with Pascal at the end, like you get in the video game,
Right.
it's definitely a trade-off.
Yeah,
but...
like that I'm less concerned about because that is something which is inherently linked to the ability to kind of like the intrinsic property of being the player and making the player choose, right? So that bit I'm less... I think you couldn't really replicate if you tried. The thing with the kids is I think the way it happens in the game, which is they're so terrified they commit suicide, is tragic because it is an extension of the idea of Nier, which is if you are given free will, if you are given personhood, what do you do with it? You know, and it turns out, in fact, that being too emotional, being too in touch with your feelings is in fact dangerous, which is, you know, obviously something that we as humans know, but it, you know, it
and the machines being like these flawed emulations of human behavior, right? Like you see the like disastrous ways this go, and I definitely do agree with you. There's I think for me it's like, in some ways I think as somebody who like I guess as somebody who has experienced this anime, the thing I would say is like it does make the trade-off on that theme to instead kind of further strengthen another theme that Yoko Taro loves, right? Which is like the tragedy of like the ways in which compassion and goodness are punished in the kind of cruel worlds he creates, right? Like Lily does the objectively morally righteous thing in this story. She takes in the children, she protects them, like because of her compassion for others, because of her inherent like desire to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And she is brutally punished for it. Like in this one action she makes, this one moment of compassion, she does to android kind what the machines could not do for centuries, right? Like her decision essentially dooms the androids in this version of events. And you're right that like that it kind of loses some of the like what do these androids or what do these machines in general do with their like flawed emulations of humanity. It is kind of a shame to lose that, but I do think something of relatively equal strength is replaced in the anime adaptation. And so I think for me it still works as like a valid take on this story, these narrative events.
I think it is a smart adaptation choice as well, because I think, you know, it's much harder to emphasize that theme without a lot of the surrounding bits and bobs which for the necessity of brevity have been cut out of the anime, right? Like there's a lot of small things like the various, you know, suicidal robots that you run across and stuff which reinforce that theme. I think that it's another intelligent adaptation choice in the sense that you are trading perhaps an ideological complexity for a more immediate emotional gut punch. And, you know, I regret what was lost, but I think it's another smart choice, you know, in a show which has made quite a few smart choices in switching mediums. I just think, obviously, you know, I think that it's a little disappointing that we do lose some of that additional complexity there.
I think that is fair.
Iro, you're going to say something?
Yes.
No, I broadly agree.
Yeah. I mean, what this is really saying is you should both play the game and watch the anime, perhaps.
It's been much better than expected, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we were on tape from a year ago or what have you, being like
asking what could an anime adaptation bring to the story, and the answer is that they have been brave enough to deviate in ways which make sense and raise a certain amount of question. I do have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Do they kill the lady who sells you achievements?
She has not appeared, but one assumes she's dead.
Yes.
But she had the good stuff.
I know, yeah. How am I going to platinum this game now?
No, you will not be getting the platinum trophy for the Nier Automata anime.
They have also ceased the end of episode puppet shows.
Yes.
Because shit got real.
They do a bit where when the pods connect to each other and speak real fast.
Yes.
When they are saying we can't do these puppet shows anymore, there's a whole bit about how, hey, they basically say, hey, we're really swamped on the schedule and we need to get stuff done quick because the discs have to go on sale and we just can't we can't affect the schedule of the discs. Boy, this sure is a problem for all of us, and it sure would be nice if somebody did something about it. But maybe they do know that there's a problem, and they're simply not doing anything on purpose.
Bit near the knuckle there. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, as we've spoken to this before, that the Nier Automata anime has had a it is a. In some regards, it is maybe to be clear, like COVID did not go away, but in some ways, Nier Automata is maybe the last of the productions of the COVID era that is still very obviously affected by the issues that arose from a lot of works made during that time period.
Right.
The fact that it's airing this year, right? A full year later, the issues
there was the huge
delays.
Right. There was the huge gap to air the last couple episodes and then getting this season. I mean, I'm sure they were thinking about this season during the whole I'm sure they didn't decide after season 1 to make this season, right? It seems like they would have had to have a plan of how they were going to handle the story and everything. So it would make sense that it's still kind of getting hampered by once you get off once the train goes off the tracks, getting it back on the tracks is hard.
Yeah.
I think for that reason, it's I definitely do I definitely do want to give this anime credit where it is due, right? Because I think under these conditions, I think it would be very easy to kind of just get to the finish line, right? Let's just get this over with. Let's just
phone it in. Yeah.
And the fact that they have again, I don't know if it's clear how deeply Yoko Taro is actually involved with the production
I believe
of
he's
anime.
working on scripts.
Okay, so it's so for them to really stick to this because in many ways this is here's the thing. I'm not going to say all adaptations could be this good, but you don't get an adaptation like this unless you are very much thinking very considerately about the work you are adapting and the medium you are adapting it to. These are very deliberate creative decisions that you don't kind of arrive at by accident.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not much left. I guess.
About 3 episodes to go?
Yeah. I think because this will be the last time we get to talk about this before it ends, Arrow, you and I, we probably got to get on record and
speculation, baseless speculation.
How does the Nier Automata anime end? Because you can't do ending E.
Right, you can't. Ending E is not physically possible.
There
to do
have
in
to
anime,
be. I think they will attempt to emulate it in some fashion, but how they do so is a thing I could not conceive of. Right?
What if ending E is exclusive to the Blu-rays?
I mean, we joke about it, right? But well, this would only Nier Automata is airing on Crunchyroll, right?
I think so.
Yeah, yes, it is on Crunchyroll.
What if during the credits of the final episode you get an in-web pop-up from Crunchyroll? That's do you want to delete your Crunchyroll account?
Damn right I do.
And the answer is yes.
I mean, yes.
You can have it
Only
like
a monster wouldn't delete their Crunchyroll account to help others reach the end of the Nier Automata anime ending.
It's some kind of button where you can never watch the anime on Crunchyroll again. Like,
God, it just grays out.
I mean, Kojima was talking about investigating those DVDs that would self-destruct when you put them in the drive. Maybe he's on board with this.
In all seriousness, I'm not sure, like, with this anime. I will say, I will bring up, because we haven't brought it up before, that it has been discovered that there are hidden hexadecimal codes hidden in the anime throughout its entire airing. They're usually placed in the eye catches, and this has been going on since episode 1, and fans have decoded them. I don't have them all on hand, but basically the implication of these statements seem to be that they are hidden messages left behind by either the pods or potentially even Accord. We will not get into who Accord is. That is getting too deep into the Yokoverse.
I was going to say, I have no idea who Accord is.
But just know this is like some like Tight Moon ass like multiverse. Like we are getting into that territory of Yoko Taro's like the Drakengard shit, right?
Yeah,
like that's kind of what we're getting into here. And fans have kind of speculated that like those messages are maybe hinting at like that we are potentially getting a rebuild situation with the Nier Automata anime, right?
You re-mentioning Accord made me remember how some of Dragon Guard 3 goes, and I think there's a non-zero chance then that this ends with just complete annihilation, and we zoom out and Accord goes, well, not pursuing that world line anymore. Let's go over to this other one, and it's the game.
I could see it, because yes, one of the hidden messages, I believe, is we must prepare for the worst possible outcome.
Always good advice in a Yoko Taro game.
So I could see that, right? Or it could even go the direction of like, yes, like the anime is the bad end. Everybody dies. It all goes to shit, and then the message is like, hey, do you want to save these people? Do you want to give them a chance, the hope of redemption? Then you
play
can
the critically acclaimed Nier Automata now in stores.
Yeah, exactly.
People do anything for money.
People have also speculated. This is too much. This one won't fly because the anime got delayed. There's no way Yoko Taro could have planned this out. Apparently, the last episode of the anime will air roughly around TGS.
Oh no!
They were saying, "Hey, make sure we stay on schedule."
This is some real fantasy delusion.
I know.
Stuff.
What if the end of the Nier Automata anime has the trailer for Yoko Taro's next game?
What if the end of the Nier Automata anime announces a re-release for PS5?
Just as likely.
There we go.
Just likely, honestly.
Just shot down that theory.
I have a distinct memory of the year Nier Automata was announced and at E3, and prior to E3, Square had their video teasing like, we're going to have so many announcements at E3. And that video was playing Frog's theme from Chrono Trigger.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And then nothing happened.
Chrono Break will never exist.
No, of course. I don't want it to anymore, right? But
I thought you were going in the direction of the end of the Nier Automata anime will announce Yoko Taro's Chrono Break.
Now, that would be, like, incredible. I would play Chrono Break then. Fuck.
It's just 20 hours of the secret developers room. That's the entire game.
We can't. Oh man, we can't do the bit of like which Square Enix video game would you want Yoko Taro to direct, because we could be here all day.
Yeah. I think it's not out of the possibility for the announcement to be at the end of the series. I don't really expect it, but I don't not expect it.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule anything out at this point.
Exactly.
From what you guys have been telling us, so we'll see. But Yeah, it's been a fascinating. Somehow this has become arguably the most interesting show to talk about. Like, just or at least to hear from you guys what's going on with it for me. So
it is weird to say that in some regards.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's the best show of the season. Obviously Dead Demons is airing this season, but it might be my favorite show of this season. I don't.
I hear you. The one you're most excited to watch every week.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
I cannot believe I am saying this, considering how skeptical I was of this anime announcement years ago.
Yeah, and even the first episode, we were very skeptical. Yeah, so it's an interesting turning of events.
PS2 2B will come back and attack us or something.
What if PS2 2B crosses over with PS1 botchy?
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about Sengoku Youko.
Yes.
Speaking of adaptations,
yep.
I'm assuming we're into the new arc at this point.
We have.
What is currently happening?
So, Senya, at the end of the previous arc, Senya fought Muto the dragon, beat him up, saved Tsukiko, and they were accosted by the Void Tribe, the people of the Void, who are the strange five-hooded figures who have cropped up from time to time.
Okay,
and
I don't think I watched enough to see them, but
that's
yes,
fair. And they want to capture Senya and use his, fate power to save their homeland.
Okay.
And so they're going around and turning gods into mad gods and whatnot with this goal in mind. And so we jump forward another few years where Senya and Tsukio are now grown up. And that was our new arc where Senya is yep. And Senya's told all right, we're training you so that you can fight Jinya and take him down because he is causing a lot of problems over there off screen. And that's sort of where we stand, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say these last two episodes have mostly kind of been establishing and setting up the final leg of Sengoku Yoko's storyline.
Yeah. We've ended an arc and we are now in the establishing a new arc zone of reestablishing Senya and Tsukiko and what they can do now that they're older, meeting back up with Tama and dealing with that stuff. The thing that gives Senya the people of the Void will attack people by going through the spiritual world basically and messing with their heads, and because Senya has 1,000 demons inside of him, when he goes into the spirit world, when he goes into the spirit world, he brings an army with him, right?
Right.
And that's
big deal. I also have 1,000 demons inside of me.
Sorry, Jill, I interrupted.
No, I'm just saying that would be very effective, I would think, if you have, Okay.
Yeah.
I had joked about him becoming the main character, but I guess he did, huh?
Yes.
He is truly
the real main character of Sengoku.
He is the main character for a longer stretch of this story than
right. Okay.
Yeah.
How are you guys feeling about the new arc then, or is it just kind of more of the same new status quo though?
Yeah, I continue to be frustrated by the pacing, even though how many episodes are in? There's still 10 episodes to go or something?
About, yes.
Right. Or it'll go through the next quarter.
Right.
And it's just frustrating to be in the middle of an episode or 2/3 through an episode, and it's they hit an emotional beat that was clearly that partly would have been the end of a chapter in the manga, right? And would really work as an episode break, and then they just have to move on, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, the end of the previous arc and then the introduction of everybody being grown up happens in the same episode.
Yeah, you need a minute to let that. You need a week to let that sit. Right?
And it's oh my god.
It is just a show constantly beset by its inability to catch its breath.
The shonen time skip waits for no man.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I will say for myself, it's like kind of getting this reset. Like, I guess it shouldn't have to function like this, but because they kind of did not really bring it for the end of the second arc, right? We kind of discussed that. Like, they did not really give it the big shonen climax it deserved. It does broadly feel better at the moment in its like current status quo reset, where the stakes have kind of dropped considerably again, and
now
as a result,
the aesthetics, the animation and production sort of match closer with the subject matter because it's less high octane.
It is funny that like the first fight Senya has in the story after fighting like a kid dragon god super fighter kid, he's like wrestling a geriatric dog, like a really old dog,
a dog spirit
with a pipe,
yep.
Like this dog's so old, and Senya's like, shit, I really wish I didn't have to fight this.
I wish I didn't have to do this
dog.
To you. Yeah. It's an important dog.
Just let me use all my time skip shonen power up abilities on this really old dog.
And when this gets to the last 5 to 6 episodes where it will all be one big drag out fight with every character involved.
Oh, buddy, it's gonna be rough.
It's so bad. Oh, it's gonna be rough. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it gets to the inevitable ending brawl, as all of these things do.
So this is like the final arc.
Yeah.
Like not gonna be another time skip or anything, right?
Yep.
So okay.
They've alluded to the ending in multiple ways.
Right. Okay.
It is pretty funny that there's like a last thing I did get a lot very Musukami in a ways is in one of these episodes they meet with a fortune teller, a seer, to kind of like figure out like Senya's next like course of action, right? Like, I'm gonna look in your future and we're gonna figure out what you need to do next, right? And the fortune teller looks at Senya's future and is like, never. Fucking whatever, you're fine. Like,
this is so boring.
Right.
Like,
it's like, whatever.
Fun in your future. Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're the protagonist. Never mind, my bad. I don't gotta tell you shit. You'll be fine.
You'll make it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess it keeps trucking along then.
I'll keep trucking along.
We'll get there when we're going into next season, right? So
yeah,
we'll get there. All right. Well, let's move along and talk about. My notes disappeared there for a second. Okay, I got it. Senpai is an Otokonoko. Mostly good with these 2 episodes, some bad, but if you recall last time where we left off, the girl Saki had got a dramatic call that her grandmother was in the hospital,
right? Which was, she had told her grandmother she found her special someone, and make sure grandma knows before she croaks that.
Okay, so
kiss in front of my deathbed.
That's right. That's
So, thankfully, none of that happened.
Okay.
All of my predictions were wrong. Like immediately at the beginning of the next episode, she goes to see her grandmother, and her grandmother is fine. She just felt a little woozy and went to the hospital as a precaution.
The old bait and switch.
This is the shittiest kind of cliffhanger.
She might do a backflip out of the hospital bed or something.
Yeah. Well, nevertheless, they're like, oh, we're going to keep her here for observation for a few days, and this is enough. So what this is enough to set up what they were really trying to set up, which is her father coming home to visit, and it was a really interesting, and I think I liked how they handled her father, because kind of similar to the main kid's mother, they're kind of terrible parents, but they do it in a nuanced way where they're not like blatantly evil. So like when you meet her dad, he's like travels for work and he's never home, basically, right? One of the classic anime dad, right?
Yep.
And he comes home and he seems like this really kind of funny, nice guy that really loves his daughter and all, which is true. But throughout the course of an episode and a half, they kind of subtly reveal that he clearly loves his job more than his daughter. And it culminates in this, big dramatic moment where, he makes plans to do something, because I'll get to the other half of this. This is also leading up to the big Christmas Eve thing, which is always a big, romance anime event. But, on Christmas Eve, he makes plans with his daughter. And then, of course, last minute work calls and he has to leave. And there's this big dramatic moment where she realizes earlier in the episode she had scraped her knee and has a giant bandage on it, and her dad never asked her what happened to her knee. And just darts off into the darts off into the night.
I feel like it's fairly obvious, right? Like
what's obvious?
What happened to her knee?
What happened to her knee? Like, she injured it.
Yes, but right.
I think it's more
It's
like
he
never
expressed no concern for me.
Yeah, I know. I'm just
he never asked her what happened, or are you feeling okay, or whatever. He didn't even notice it, was the point, right?
Yeah.
So, and this sets up, of course, because when the main kid comes around, the first thing he said, he's like, "Oh, what happened to your knee? Are you okay?" And to reignite her feelings anyway, I generally did like how they handled her dad, though, because again, I thought it was a more realistic portrayal of a bad parent than I'm just outright evil or whatever.
Yeah, anime has been slowly getting better at writing bad anime parents lately, right? Like,
yeah, because I mean, let's be honest, all anime parent, or like 90% of anime parents, are bad. It's just a matter of
like, you have this, you got girls band cry. It's like,
if they are in an episode, it's to be bad. So
yeah,
right.
Yeah. If they're good parents, they just never show up, right? They're just they're in the background. Well, actually, no, there were good parents in this episode. I'll get to that in a minute. But just to wrap up Saki's story here, she kind of reconnects with it's pretty sweet, because she reconnects with the other two, and both of them, not just the main kid, but like the other guy, Ryuji, and they both end up coming over to hang out with her, so that she doesn't feel bad about her dad and all that, which was nice. So I like that, because that's the stuff I've liked in the show earlier, like when it's like more about the three of them and their friendship and everything, and not the romantic drama stuff. But nevertheless, there is the romantic drama stuff, because on the other side, so if you also recall, the main kid and the dude started dating technically, and if you remember, I put a big asterisk on that one because I did not think it was going to last.
There was a confession.
Yeah, and they do attempt to kind of go on some dates and stuff, but it's like really weird and awkward. Like, and I think it's characterized more as like, all right, I've said this on the podcast before. If you've been friends with somebody for years, a really long time, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very unlikely that a romantic relationship is going to work out.
Yeah, what's it called? The Westermark effect?
I've seen it too many times. And anyway.
That's
it was,
when you're very young, right? The Westermark effect.
Right.
But just from a like relationship dynamic standpoint.
Just from my own personal experiences and observations, I've said that before. Gotcha. But and I feel like that's kind of what they're going for. There is also, they start to tip up to the borderline of some like weird stuff with the the gender and sexuality angle, because like there's one bit where the dude feels like they go to like a I forget where they go. They basically go on a date, and the dude feels like uncomfortable being seen with someone who at least is presenting and looks like another guy, right? And he feels very uncomfortable about it. And the main kid's like, I know what I'll do, and goes and switches into his girl costume, and then they have a good time. And I'm like,
not necessarily offensive, but maybe not putting the right message out.
I'm willing to give the show some grace because of their track record, and I do feel like their heart is in the right place. So like but there were some moments like that were like, and there was some other stuff where the guys like, I mean, when it eventually does lead up to them, the kid saying he wants to break up. The boy saying he wants to break up to the main kid.
Sure.
And part of it he's like, you must think I'm gross or something like that because he likes guys or whatever. And it's a little borderline, but I think what they're going for is more that he's wrong and that it's really that's not the type of relationship that they have or that they probably want. Or at least
it certainly sounds like it didn't last very long.
Yeah, because it was only like a few days or maybe a few weeks at most or something. But the what kind of bugged me more than that was they do start playing into the love triangle drama, because you can't have one side of the love triangle spend too much time on one side of the love triangle without having to swing back to the other side at some point, right? And so of course part of the guy wanting to break up is because he saw the main kid hugging the girl because she was while she was upset because of her dad leaving, and he of course misunderstands.
How dare you cheat on me?
Their feelings, and he must really be in love with her, and we're swinging back in that direction. Even the main kid is like, oh, when there was a bit when the guy kind of like puts his arm around him and he has like a flashback to hugging the girl, and it's like, why did I think of her? And I'm like, no, don't do this. Don't do this. But they are making, it feels like they're making a hard swing back in that direction because you have to keep the love triangle equal, and I'm not a big fan of that. But otherwise, though, a lot of the actual like portrayal of things was nice. I already talked about how I liked how they depicted her father. On the flip side, I really liked Ryuji, the boy, when he basically sets up a date on Christmas Eve with the main kid that gets ruined by all the other drama. But in leading up to that, he's going to come over to his house, and his parents are like 110% on board, to the point where they're being like obnoxious. So they're very supportive of him dating
too supportive,
dating a boy. We'll call it dating a boy for the sake of simplicity. But they're like
the kind of cloying supportiveness. That's the No.
It's actually it's actually the way you would see it even in a more traditional romance anime, where the dad's like, so you're gonna get some action tonight, huh? Oh God.
Like I said, too supportive.
And him and his mom and their sister are heading out the door, and he's like, okay, we're leaving, and we will definitely not be back before 10 p.m. Like that kind of stuff. Which in this context, this context felt very good and just hilarious. But yeah, I thought that was nice. So, yeah, I liked where the latest episode kind of ends, is with the three of them getting together and supporting each other again, which is what my favorite part of the show is. So I did appreciate that. So, minus the little bit of, love triangle melodrama stuff that, again, I'm not particularly interested in. I think it was mostly a positive set of episodes. So
good. They do seem to kind of like constantly be in danger of falling off the edge, though.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, from the title on of the show, it's kind of riding the edge of I think I've said before, there's all kinds of landmines the show could be stepping on, right?
I just feel like every week you're like, well, it was good, but there's some really worrying signs on the horizon. Like that's just been like every report in on this, which I don't necessarily say that as a criticism. They're dealing with some tough subject matter, but
and they've never like fully fallen off the edge or anything.
Well, yeah.
Like I think it's all still been a positive experience. As much as I'm allowed to say that, but yeah. All right, let's move on and talk about Mayonaka Punch.
Uh-huh.
The opposite of a positive experience.
Before we get into anything, I do want to say the first episode of this block was one of the worst episodes of anything that I've seen in a long time. Man.
I think I'm still watching because we're almost done, but like that episode, I'm checked out. Right.
For context, the first episode is one where they go to like some kind of like YouTuber con or festival or something.
It's like a TwitchCon thing, yeah,
or like a TwitchCon thing, I guess. And I don't think the concept of the episode itself was inherently bad, but just something with the execution of it where it was just like so much random stuff that I didn't care about was happening.
I really wonder if like what we are running like face first into at like Mach speed is like the culture clash of like Western and like Eastern streamer culture, maybe. Because like, here's the thing, I'm not going to pretend like, oh yeah, and not like my wholesome beloved Western streamers who are not also like sex pests and awful people, but more the like the really weird, like, I don't know about you guys, but like there's that like kind of like uncanny valley like talk show host feel to that.
Right, it's the crossover between like streamer culture, idol culture, and like weird Japanese variety show.
Yeah, you can see those those influences on the Japanese scene.
Like I don't know, like is this what live events for Japanese streamers? Is this what they're like? I guess, and like even if that is true, I think my biggest issue with this episode, right, is that like if the joke, or it's not even a joke, right? If the premise is, haha, our vampire streamers are going to appear at a live event, and then like it doesn't even really feel like the jokes are specifically skewering or even poking fun at like Japanese streamer culture or like streamer antics or whatever. It's just presenting it all so like straightforward, like like, where is the actual joke? Right?
I have to assume that the huge number of random characters they introduce in this episode are presumably like parodies of existing YouTubers.
Yeah, maybe,
I assume so as well, but it's just like
because that's like the only way I could see like getting any value out of their existence.
Yeah.
Like my gut feeling is that like watching this episode almost felt like, oh, is this what happens when like 40-year-old men try to write YouTubers? Like, like this is what a YouTuber would be like. Am I right, kids? Or
I don't know.
Or is that what Japanese streamers are actually like? Like that's the thing.
It might be a little bit of both on that one. I don't know, but my thing is like I said, I think the episode still could have been funny, but just
there are ways this show could have been funny. Like I think for me, a big problem is like every time it's like, oh, now we're meeting this YouTuber, and it's like, oh, like what's their weird dynamic with one of the members of Mayonaka Punch, right? There's like not really any actual chemistry, right? Like there's no, like, it's like, oh, haha, we're gonna make Ichiko cook with the chef YouTuber, and then it's like the joke isn't even their interaction. The joke is she misreads the instructions, like
right.
So it's
like my thing was like at one point, Leave drinks too much stamina and X and has to do a quiz battle with the Maytag man. Right?
Yeah.
And if I say that sentence out loud, I'm like, okay, that sounds like that could be hilarious.
That sounds like it should be pretty good.
Then it ain't.
But somehow they managed to make that not funny. So I don't know. And then they end it with like they have some kind of idol performance at the end that they do for some reason.
a completely like unironic idol performance.
Right, unironic. That's a thing, right? Like that is the difference between like the idol performance in this episode. I feel like exists in stark contrast to their stupid Bell performance.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yes.
Yeah. Like the Bell performance is great because you know that none of them like are either their heart is not in it or their heart is so in it that it's stupid. And then like you're really telling me Tokage, of all people, could coordinate like a viable idol, like a live idol performance? Fuck no! Like not in a million years.
She's not going to memorize the lyrics. She's not going to do the dances.
No, and that's what makes it feel like really, what's the word? Like inauthentic to these characters.
Yeah.
Also, just the idea that you could do like a stage idol performance without any lighting or sound or amplification or anything.
Oh, right. They had the whole power went out thing, which didn't help anything. I don't know. It was a terrible episode.
Really bad. Like
that's the exact shit I was talking about. Like last podcast, it's like it's too fucking saccharine, right?
Yeah. Like, well, that kind of gets into the next episode. Speaking of saccharine, which I enjoyed more for sure.
It's better.
It was better. It was kind of more back to business as usual, right? But they go to Leaves' childhood home, and
no, it's
not Leaves. It's
Misaki.
Yeah,
I'm getting confused because they all have to.
No, they're pretending.
They're pretending that. So they all have to pretend that it's they all take a shot at pretending it's their childhood home, which was the kind of one good joke in that episode.
Yeah, I was going to say that was the one joke that I thought landed where they reposition the video as just them pretending instead of actually trying to fool people.
Right, and that works well, right? Because it's like, in some ways, streaming it's all performance, right? Like that's kind of the thing, right? Like, obviously, there are varying degrees of authenticity, but at the end of the day, it's a performance. And the thing that works well about the latest episode, right, is we didn't even mention, like, so they visit Misaki's childhood home where her little sister lives, right? And so, like, the gimmick of these videos is that each one of the 5 is going to pretend to be Misaki's younger sister's sibling, right? And I think what works there is like diegetically they are putting on a performance, but you still see the like quirks of their characters come through, right? In their like weird half-assed ways to be like, hey sis, like how's it going?
I mean, and also again, all the performances are extremely bad. That's the joke. Like
and like watching them fall flat because it turns out that Misaki was like the worst older sibling ever,
it's very funny how each segment reveals another way in which Misaki is a terrible person, right? Which is also a very good joke.
And it's
it kind of all comes together into like an actual like sweet moment though, right? Like,
and that's kind of the problem, right? Is then it becomes saccharine again, right? Because then it's like it's revealed that Misaki's younger sister, like, deep down, despite all of Misaki's problems, they're still family. She still loves Misaki. She was always Misaki's #1 fan and is like a big fan of Mayonaka Punch, and it all it's happily ever after, right? And I don't like. I didn't need like the relationship to stay bad, and I don't even think the relationship is implied to be bad, right? Like it's almost kind of healthy that it's like all the things Misaki's younger sister is saying about Misaki are not like damning personal failures.
Right.
They're also factually true. She is kind of a bad person.
Right. It's just the reality of like siblings, right? Like sibling relationships can be kind of fucked up sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really need to have this like big emotional confession at the end. It kind of takes away from, the more humoristic aspects of this episode, really.
It feels staged, but not in the way that the rest of the episode is staged, where, the joke is that it's staged. It feels it feels manipulative.
Well, it's no longer diegetically staged. It's like
forced in by the writers.
Staged,
Yes. Yeah. And like I don't think I think this episode was fairly funny, but I don't think they earned that moment of catharsis at the end.
No,
I think the only episode which has is the Fu episode, really.
Yeah, I think for me, like you guys know, I'm historically a sucker for comedies with heart to them, right? Like,
of course,
but that is a difficult thing to pull off, as we were seeing in this show. Because like I could see a version of Mayonaka Punch where we get to this episode, and because it's kind of been properly built up to, you know, it would make sense. Because I do think there's a certain aspect of it where they're trying to portray that the girls have gotten closer over time during this stretch of trying to, you know, make videos and get to 1 million subscribers.
Right.
Where their relationship is not supposed to be the same as it was at the start of the series. But I don't think they've done a good job of like developing that at all. It's just like in the last couple episodes, we start getting actual, like, you know, actually nice, sweet, emotional moments that it's like, well, you guys are still acting the same though. Like it doesn't feel like their relationship has changed. They're just kind of dropping that in there now. And then, you know, there's the fact that that's also just difficult to combine with you know, the humor aspect and still keeping it funny when your joke is that they're terrible people, and then you kind of pull the curtain out and pull the rug out and say, well, they're actually not that bad. Right?
Yeah, I think I either need them to be nicer or I need them to be worse, if that makes sense. You know, they need to pick a path, you know, because at the moment they're not awful enough that the joke of them actually caring for each other, or not joke, but like the plot construction of them actually having moments of sweetness really lands. And they're not nice enough that the show is just about nice people being nice, you know.
Yeah.
So
Iro, are you gonna say something there?
No, I agree. Like if they're not shitty enough, so it's not funny. Like it doesn't work when they become nice. Like instead, it's just like really hackneyed or contrived ways that they're upset. They're kind of upset with each other, or there's tension in the first half of the episode, and then the back half, it's we're all friends again. And yeah, it doesn't go hard enough in on either to work. Right?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I still enjoyed the second episode overall, though. I would still say it was but about the same as any other average episode of Mayonaka Punch.
I think like the thing that I feel like is becoming very apparent with Mayonaka Punch is like they know how to write good jokes, like in a vacuum. I think
right.
I think broadly, like the timing, the staging, the dialogue, like they know how to do a good bit. I think it's just like, and you sometimes see comedies like this, right? Like I would almost say that like later seasons of oh my god, what's it called?
Osamatsu. Yeah.
Yes.
Osamatsu-san.
Like kind of felt this in that show as well. Of like, okay, this bit is good, but this episode is not.
I think to a certain extent, it's just the time old anime thing of they dwell too long on the bits and they don't come fast enough. You know, I think that each joke is drawn out enough that you kind of get tired of it, and there just are not enough jokes overall. And I know that sounds like an awfully shitty kind of like just average joke per minute ratio is not up, but it doesn't have that manic energy that you would get with like a punchline every however often.
Right.
You know,
yeah,
there's just not the kind of like frenetic energy which something like this needs. I think
the balance of that is a little off. Yeah. But yeah, like, you know, like G, you said, I mean, they know how to make a good joke. There's some good jokes in there. It's just everything is kind of, I don't know, a little off, I guess. Yeah. All right. Well, you know, I feel like I haven't done this in a long time.
Okay.
Maybe I have, but I'm just gonna plug if you want a show with terrible people that also fits in you know, some emotional gut punches, perhaps you should watch Hina Matsuri or read the manga. Shout out to the Anzu homeless camp arc, and that is the gold standard for terrible people and with emotional gut punches. Yes. That is not what we were getting in Mayonaka Punch.
But, Season 2 any day now.
Oh god, the rest of the manga is so good too. But anyway,
I should.
Yeah, you should read that, G. It's not, the anime is not happening at this point.
Oh, I
think we're safe. I think it's safe to say the anime is not happening. You should
how long did it take to get season 4 of Full Metal Panic?
Oh baby,
like 15 years or something. Look, this year was the 10th year anniversary of Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun. If that didn't get a sequel,
oh god, we're old.
Yeah, if that didn't get a sequel, Hinamatsuri is not getting a sequel.
That manga is still fucking going, isn't it?
It is. Hinamatsuri is not. That ended. But Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun is, and I stopped reading it because it got very boring. It's just going in circles. That is. But the anime is good. Go watch that as well. All right. Let's move on to Ramen Akaneko. I did not think I was going to have anything to say about this show until I watched the latest episode today.
Okay.
Because literally,
that's something else you say every episode as well.
What do you have to say about Ramen?
Because literally in the first episode of this block, there's a segment where it's just one of the cats teaching the main girl how to put data into a spreadsheet, and I'm like, oh god, there's not going to be anything to talk about. But this latest episode had one of the wildest segments they've ever had in Ramen Akaneko history, where they reveal the backstory. The last cat that we've had no backstory on is the bratty white girl cat. And it is revealed that she was formerly a YouTube idol / influencer in the past.
Mayo Punch crossover.
And through some really bizarre... I don't even know if I can remember all of the weird details of this, but she basically ended up quitting and getting a job at Ramen Akaneko to hide. And her former owner, I guess, which makes me uncomfortable to call people an owner in a world where cats have sentience and human rights, who she ran away from, finds her and is like, you gotta come back and we gotta be a YouTube idol or whatever. And she reveals that she quit. Okay.
Oh boy.
There's two things. One, there was an incident where she got I didn't say what kind of piercing she got, an ear piercing or on her paw or something like that. And
Japan.
And you can't do that as an idol. It's a violation of your contract. And B, her owner got accused of animal abuse.
Okay.
And this broke up the group.
Because of the piercing, or
and it wasn't in a group, but it was just her and her owner / manager or whatever.
It's like he made her get a piercing, and is that why it's animal abuse?
Right, I think that's what they were implying was the accusations, and but it really she just wanted it, and it also violated her contract, and there was a whole thing about how the cat was upset that her owner was getting called ugly by people online so much that she went and got plastic surgery. And I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah, every episode, it seems we are asking more and more questions about the nature of this world.
So this all culminated in the funniest moment where this is all happening because the previous owner, this woman, the owner's a woman. She tracks down where the cat is and goes to Ramen Akaneko. And she just walks in and starts yelling in front of everybody, hey, come join back. And they're just yelling at each other. And I don't even know if I can explain this in a way that would truly have the full impact, but there's this character sitting at the counter eating ramen that gets up and starts saying, hey, you can't, she has rights and all this. And it's it's a person dressed in, and I put a screenshot in the chat earlier.
Oh, this one.
It's a person dressed in, they've got a pompadour and big sunglasses, and you can't see in the screenshot, they're wearing a Hot Rod Flame bowling shirt.
Of course.
And they start talking in a woman's voice, and they're starts giving all these legal rights of how she is an independent cat and can make her own decisions and everything. And out of nowhere, pulls off the pompadour wig and reveals that it is one of their lawyers that we met 6 episodes ago that was sitting there disguised at the counter.
I
thought you were going to say she pulls off the wig and she's a cat underneath.
We're not quite that far, and I was like, "What?"
Right.
And it's maybe it doesn't sound quite that crazy in other shows. I guess still kind of sounds kind of crazy, but in this show, which literally right before this, we were talking about putting data in a spreadsheet. It was
right.
it was totally wild. And of course they work everything out in the end, but it was just all right. Well, I guess we still got some curveballs in here in Ramen Akaneko, but yeah. Nevertheless, as much as I keep saying there's nothing to talk about, it's not that I don't enjoy the show. It's just that those are not very exciting things that come over well in a podcast, but I'm still enjoying it. So,
how's the ramen?
They haven't talked too much about the ramen lately, unfortunately.
What are we doing?
There was one bit where they were arguing over one of the cats got their snacks stolen.
Damn.
And wrongly accused of one of the other cats, and it turned out that Kenjiro Suda had eaten them by accident. And
the curse.
As expected of a villain.
Yeah.
Kenjiro Suda ruins everything.
Yes, exactly. But to make up for it, he made some like crispy duck or something. I was like, okay.
Well, yeah.
All right. Hold on.
I'll take some of that. Everything forgiven after that. But yeah. All right.
Okay.
Let's wrap things up with Dead Demons.
Speaking of the depths of human depravity,
Dead Demons, DDDDD Destruction. I know last time I said I didn't feel like the show was misery porn, but I don't know. I feel like there were some segments in these 2 episodes.
I mean, this
might have been pushing the boundary a little bit.
Classic Asano. Like,
yeah,
he is very good at tightening the grip. If that makes sense.
Like no shade towards him, but I think this is kind of why I don't read a lot of Asano works. Honestly,
it's I'm not saying he shouldn't do it, but it's tough. It's a lot to take in. Like, you got to be.
I will say before we start, like, wading in human depravity, the bit where they tell the Prime Minister he was only elected because he looks like Isobe-yan is incredibly funny. Especially because it's otherwise super dark.
It's an interesting bit of dark humor, yeah. I think episode 4, what was episodes 14 and 15?
Oh, I don't know what number
14 and 15.
Right now,
So I think episode 14, me and Ira kind of discussed this. I think, like, despite the fact that I said I wasn't, like, invested that deeply in Karode and Oran, I feel like episode 14 revealed to me that actually I kind of need those characters to be on screen for me to stay invested in the, like, overall arching, like, narrative of Dead Demons, because episode 14 focuses almost entirely on either people in the government, people in power, or, like, unrelated individuals, right? And like, you have episode 14 opening up with this, like, documentary of people who are struggling because they live near the crash site and the environmental effects on it. And it's, like, a very kind of grossly cynical segment, right? Where it's, like, it kind of gets at, like, okay, the person recording the documentary is, like, how much are they just kind of doing this for, the view, so to speak? And then the subject of the documentary is, like, also, like, a pretty, like, awful person.
That was probably the most cynical segment of the entire series.
So can I push back on that a little bit there? I think that, yes, it is a very dark and very cynical segment, but I don't think it's overwhelmingly so, because I think that part of the genius of it is that the writing does depict these people as somewhat complex, right? Like, the subject of the documentary is kind of rude and gross and maybe a glory hound and, treats her mother badly. But she's clearly struggling with some stuff as well. And, like, we see at the end, she does actually care about her mother. And so, like, it's a complicated portrayal.
I think for me, so I do agree with you that, like, I mean, these people are not, like, villains, right? These are not, I mean, they're not certainly not as bad as, for example, the people literally running the country. But I think where, like, kind of went into, like, kind of, like, grossly cynical territory, right, is, like, where, like, they get caught in, like, a building collapses on them and they're trapped under the rubble, and they're calling for help, and the person they call is, like, a guy that the documentarian was sleeping with, and, like, he looks at his phone and, like, a coworker's like, shouldn't you answer that? He's like, nah, it's just a fuck buddy. And it's like, it's just
I felt like even just
it's such a damning indictment of, like, human nature that almost veers on, like, comical, like, how poorly behave.
I will say that
people behave.
People being used for meaningless sex is something of a recurring theme in Asano's work.
Yes.
And I think and it's like it's not like it's not that far from reality. I mean that could be the case. It's just the choice of circumstances at that moment was so like piling it on, right? Like when I saw them when that whole sequence, that whole little mini arc or whatever we want to call it, it's like half an episode of those two where ends with them getting crushed. I'm like, oh, okay, that's like we're starting to push it like a little.
And I might be being a bit uncharitable here, but it's like that whole documentary is like, with the bit that's filmed and the behind the scenes stuff of the documentary, it's very like, disadvantaged people are just making it look like they're pretending to be that, so reap the benefits.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a unfortunate overtones of
because the mother is not actually senile, right? Like the lady is just mean and shouting and
right, because you also have the character. God, I don't remember her name, but she's a member of the friend group, the really short one with glasses, because her parents are also like people who are taking advantage of the like social like I guess the benefits of society, right? Like quote unquote unfairly. And it's like the fact that you have like if you've had this plot point show up twice in your story, like once is like okay, that's like that could be like an interesting thing to examine. To have it happen twice is like Asano, like, what are you saying here?
Is it implied that like the friend and her 5 brothers and the Black Knight are like swindling the government somehow? Like I know that they are
straight up swindling the government, but like there is a little bit of that overtone of like or undertone of like the parents like probably could have moved out by now, but like have chosen to stay in government housing.
I kind of read that, and again the same with the documentary subject. I read that as like these people are putting a brave face on, but they genuinely cannot move. I mean, like, what did they say the lady was on? It's something like 180,000 yen a month. That's not a lot of money.
Right, but the thing is, like, because of how she was acting, then it's like, how much... It's unclear how much that's real and how much of that is, like, for the camera, right?
Yeah,
I guess I'm just more willing to give the benefit of the doubt on that stuff,
So my thing is, like, I think it's... I don't think you can definitively say that the author is trying to make a statement about people mooching off the government.
I cannot. I don't think so. But I can see that
is kind of
in there, right?
It is. It's a question, right? It's dipping into that territory. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence of whether that's actually what the author is trying to say or not, or if he's just bringing in
right.
That a very real world sort of perspective that some people have. But,
I just felt that way because so much of the show is like, look at all this terrible stuff happening, and look at how these people are being terrible while terrible stuff is happening, right?
Yeah,
I think that's a gross simplification, quite frankly.
Here's the thing, like, I mean, if we want to, I mean, I don't know if we need to jump to this at this point, but it's like, I think for a lot of reasons, this is kind of why, like, a lot of my feelings on Dead Demons will kind of be contingent on, like, the eventual message this show settles on. What is like the
emotional like conclusion we're meant to take from this?
Like the way you put it, Iro, I think we were talking about it, right? Is like, it's not that like we are opposed to watching like tonally grim material or like things that like are very dark in nature, but there kind of has to be like some meaning to it. Because it's a piece of fiction, right? Because it's a deliberately written like work that I'm choosing to engage with.
Right.
Like I'm not just going to watch 18 episodes of misery porn, for no reason.
Like we're watching like Nier, which is also just like people horribly dying, but it's and perhaps they are dying because of their compassionate deeds, but like there is that core of compassion running through it, right? And I'm not sure if I'm getting that from Dead Demons, right?
I completely disagree. I think that, Dead Demons is a story about how, we are being divided by suspicion, by paranoia, by mistrust, and that means that it is tonally quite dark. But I think it is meant to be a contrast between, you have at the center this very pure friendship. And the kind of like the contrast between the cynical, dark world of all the adult characters, and the main characters are also technically adults, but you know what I mean. Kind of like I think we're meant to contrast that between the sort of the almost naivete of the main cast against kind of like the things which are dividing society, the things that are a sickness in society.
Right.
Yeah.
But what is this? But what is being defined as a sickness in society? Right?
I mean, it's mistrust, it's paranoia. It's the fear of the other.
Right. I agree with all of these things. I just don't know where it's supposed to be going. Right. Like.
Yeah. I can see where, and I don't think our opinions are that far off from each other. It's just it's a little difficult to explain here. But I think whether or not this ends with everybody dying, or if it ends with some other more positive thing, I feel like there are things that have already been stated about the human condition here that are going to land. But the way the ending turns out could still have a pretty big impact on the overall message of the show, but I feel like there are things being said in the margins, or even not, especially like the portrayal of like the government in these episodes, and like Zig was saying, just the things that are dividing us. But
I do think it's very funny that one of the CIA dudes was the dude on the tour who was taking pictures and had the gun.
Yeah, both of them.
Is it both of them?
Both the Americans.
I thought that was a good goof.
I mean, it's very.
I mean, if we want to get real, the portrayal of America in contrast to current world events is very poignant. But
I don't think anybody really comes out of this unscathed.
No, I mean, it's like I guess that's the thing, right? It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I think this show has made some very good points already. It has already told some very interesting, compelling narratives. I guess the reason why I, and maybe Iro as well, care so much about like how it, like the note it chooses to end on, right, is because like I think like it's just like we need to see that there is a payoff on like
to what
suffering.
End?
I mean,
so to speak.
like
to what end?
when
Exactly.
you say payoff, though, does that mean you need something hopeful to come out of this?
Not even necessarily, but because here's the thing, right? Like one of my favorite anime, right? A GLORIO top 10 contender, Devilman Crybaby. An immensely hopeless anime.
I mean, in a way, an anime which treads on some of the same thematic territory.
Right. And so that's the thing, is like I can enjoy a work like that, but like it has to be in, I guess for me, it's like I need it to be in service of something, and that's what I think Devilman Crybaby did very well, right? Is that like there was, the whole point of Devilman Crybaby is like there was hope in spite of like the inevitable like demise of the human race. I guess I kind of need to see something like that. Not exactly like that tonally, but I need to see something of like I needed to see it operating on that level thematically as it closes out, I guess.
I mean, I think we are seeing that. I think the love between Ontan and what's the alien boy's name?
Oba.
Oba, yeah. I think that has been a well told, kind of like anchoring piece of humanity. I think the sequence where he tries to leave and she threatens to shoot him, which is the emptiest of threats possible.
Right. I mean, it's like
I think that's a great sequence.
Yeah, it's like probably the best part of these last two episodes. Like, because I think there is an emotional resonance there, right? There is, there is an investment that we, the viewer, have in what happens here.
And like the message here is that Oba is choosing to try and save the world, like because he sees that goodness, because he wants to do it for Ontan and all her friends.
I guess the thing...
also we're being told explicitly it will not work, right? Like,
yeah, I think,
and this is where I definitely. Oh, go ahead, Jill.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the ending, because we're so deep into this story at this point, I think what the ending would contribute is, are we going to say that despite all these bad things, there's still hope, which I think is probably where we're headed. Or are we going to say that all of this is meaningless and that we're all just going to destroy each other?
I mean, as dark as Asano's work is, his endings tend not to be nihilistic. They can sometimes be deliberate anticlimaxes, but I don't think you will have a everything is pointless and humanity is doomed ending.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like that's kind of what the ending could change at this point, but
I will say, speaking to one point Eero made a little bit earlier, that I can definitely now understand why Aqua felt so strongly about episode 0.
Right.
I think, like, you can't blame us for watching it. That's how they chose to release it.
I have not seen episode 0, I will say.
Right.
And that's the thing, is like, because you had the benefit of like being told that before
at one point.
But,
at one point, episode 0 was the only thing to watch. Like, that was the first thing that came out.
Yeah. I think it's like you cannot necessarily be like, I don't think our feelings about this can be blamed, because hey, look, you chose to put that episode 0 out, and we chose to watch it, right?
I mean, I have enough context for episode 0 to know that it broadly takes place in the aftermath of some terrible calamity. So.
I think, like, in hindsight, it was a bad choice. Like, it was a bad choice to have that episode 0.
I mean, I can't speak to it, but it certainly sounds like it wasn't a great decision.
I think maybe Eero and I's feelings on this is so deeply informed by the fact that, like, that episode, I mean, again, I'm not going to spoil details. In fact, I kind of don't even remember all the details from that episode anymore, but it's like, it makes it feel like so many things are set in stone for, like, the conclusion of the story.
Like, we have already seen that this is a story with parallel timelines and, like, dimensional hopping and stuff.
So then, is the ending just going to be, and then we undid all of that and we're all cool?
Well, like, no, because like, they're not they're not doing explicit time travel, right? I think there is a chance that, like, the ending could be a a kind of like fling a light into the future thing, like, we'll go to another timeline, and this time we'll do it right.
Maybe.
I don't think that would be tremendously satisfying, but I think there's a chance.
Right. I guess the point I was trying more to make is just like, as a result of that episode 0, for example, things like 5 days until the end of humanity, like, there's not a ton of tension there for Eero and I, because it's like, well, we kind of already seen an implication of what that means, right?
Okay, but like, I feel like that was a foregone conclusion, like, just by the nature of the story.
Sure, but then maybe don't show it to us explicitly, right?
Sure.
Like, I think that is the problem, right?
Again,
like,
so that's not a creative choice I can defend, because I haven't seen the episode in question. But
yeah, and I think a lot of people have agreed that, because in the original work, episode 0 does not happen, and that's what happens later.
What I'm saying is that, like, episode 0 tells you that something awful is going to happen at the climax of this story. I could have told you that within the first 30 seconds of the first episode.
The point I am trying to make is that there is a difference between telling me that something awful is going to happen at the end of this story,
but seeing the terrible thing which has happened, right?
Sure, right. And I think there's a different emotional reaction to both of those, right? Like, you could episode 1 could have said, 3 years till the end of humanity, but without an episode 0, then rather than, like, knowing that's coming, it's more like the tension of, what does that mean? Like, what does that entail?
Right.
And
I do think it's interesting. I do think it's interesting that, me and Zig probably have more similar feelings about it, and we did not watch episode 0.
Yeah, it's quite a shock divide. I guess, like, the only thing I can do from arguing from a place of ignorance, obviously, is to say that, like, this doesn't strike me as the kind of show where the destination is necessarily the most important thing. I think the things that have happened so far have been the meat and potatoes of the story. I think for the most part, the messages and the things that, the juice of the story is stuff that has already happened. That we're just waiting for the denouement now.
I think there's still. I mean, I would agree. I think there is still room for a closing statement here, right? Like, there's
right. Like, I've seen so many terrible things happen in this show, or like, even seen the goodness in the terrible things happening and whatnot. And I just still have to ask, like, yes, and like to what end? Like,
Right.
what are you trying to say? Other than besides just showing me this, right?
Right. And to be clear, like, this could all be moot, right? Like, that is the thing.
Yes.
We are all four of us are speaking from
right,
a position of ignorance, right? Like, in some ways, it's like, once again, it's like, well, maybe we should have gone Aqua here as the one person who has read this manga. But I think it's like, because I would agree. I think 3 episodes is plenty to land the plane smoothly.
Yes,
I would say, like, you could easily.
I fully expect one of those episodes to be purely coda. Like, I think the last episode will be purely kind of like epilogue stuff.
Maybe, right? Like, I think like you can
even so. There's enough time. There's enough time to.
Oh yeah,
there's more than enough time. Like, so it's like, I think what Iro and I are probably speaking to is like maybe more like just. Hell, like the show, it could just be pessimism, right? It could just be that, look, it's the thing we literally said at the end of our last podcast, right? We just want things to be good, right? And
I mean, but the show has already been good. The show has already been so good. Like, I think
it can stop being good at any time.
That does not retroactively make things bad.
All right,
or does it?
Time out, everybody. Time out, everybody. Look. We have a fundamental disagreement on the question of Iroh asked the question of to what end is all this misery and suffering. Zig and I clearly feel like there's been enough of a validation for that already, and you guys feel like it still needs to do more. So I think we're just going to fundamentally disagree on that. Yeah. We don't have to keep going in circles because we're kind of saying the same thing now at this point. But I do, like I said, I do think. Well, I don't think there's a limit to how much the ending is going to change my opinion of this, because I feel like there's kind of only 2 endings and either one is going to I kind of see which way we're going. There is room there for a final statement. I personally would be most disappointed if they did a full reset, like we're going to another timeline or something.
I would be shocked and surprised if that were the case.
I wouldn't. I'm just saying I wouldn't rule it out, and that would be the most disappointing.
Absolutely, and I think there are very few situations in which that would not be disappointing.
I feel like that's what they're probably going to do.
Okay,
like, is the vibe I get because of how they've set up that the bad guy or the knife guy also has one of the one of the mind machines, right? And I don't know.
But those things can only let him see things. He can't actually hop timelines.
Yeah,
what allowed
it was the scout ship. It was the scout ship and like the weird.
It was the ship itself. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it set some kind of beacon with his ship that they could only go back to that time or something like that.
Okay.
When they did the skip before. Yeah, I mean, it's anime. They can make up whatever they want to make it work. I think I would not rule that out. Iroh, if you think that's the more likely outcome, I think that's less likely, but I would not rule. I would not rule anything.
I guess I'm also thinking about stuff from episode 0, which I should not talk about. Right? Like,
yeah.
The thing I will say in regards to the ending is that my experience of Asano's works is that he tends to lean towards, fairly optimistic endings that have been achieved at great cost, and I'm not sure you can do that in this case because it does seem such an all or nothing proposition. Either humanity will be destroyed or it won't be. There's ways to take a third option, of course, but I think thematically and mechanically, just in terms of where the story goes, I'm very interested to see what they try and do.
Here's my called shot. They somehow make another timeline, and Karode and Ontan must be separated to prevent the downfall of humanity.
Sure.
And they must continue on with that. Neither of them knowing each other truly.
Man.
And
they already
living empty.
There's already a quote unquote good timeline where everyone survives and Karode kills herself, right?
Yeah, objectively speaking, that's a happy timeline.
Right. I'm saying.
I think what Iroh's saying.
Other than that, right?
Yeah.
Well, they'll find some other like one of those like did Steins Gate do that? Where like where Myri could not live under any timeline?
Right,
It would
right.
be like they can never be together in any timeline.
Whatever.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
but that type of
Yes,
thing.
Right, like the only way to save humanity and the both of them is to like separate them, right? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah,
I think that's a fairly solid.
That's
idea.
Certainly possible. Yeah,
I am doubtful, but we'll see. One thing I did want to say is that when these episodes confirm that, like, basically all of the aliens were just dumped here because their central government didn't want them anymore. It just reminds me of the plot point from The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, where they like load all their telephone sanitizers onto a ship and say, "Oh no, we're following. Really, we are," and then just set them off into space. You know, it just reminds me of that absurd thing.
Right. So, is the arc that took off the aliens just like time shenanigans or whatever? I mean,
it's impossible to say. Like with like dimension hopping stuff, you know, you could do literally anything.
Yeah, they
so
can
it's
pull anything out their ass with that for sure. Yeah, I don't know. All right. Well, you know what? The show's got us talking.
It always does.
There's stuff. There's. I think, you know, these are the type of shows we often show the most respect for because there is meat there to dig into, right?
Absolutely.
But
we want stuff like this.
Yeah, so regardless of any differences of opinions on how things are going to pan out or whatever, I think we're all kind of appreciate that, you know, we have something that's somewhat substantial to watch. So, okay. Well, like I said, this is our last episode before these shows are wrapping up. I think we'll be doing our preview show next time, and then, you know, we'll see how I think we're going to have to, the way the timing works, we might have to do our mixing up of the final thoughts and first looks and things, but we'll cross that bridge.
We'll look forward to talking about Nier 3. A 1
so
month
yeah,
now.
4 weeks from today when we're talking about Nier, whatever the new subtitle is going to be.
So the end of Dead Demons is they shift to a new timeline, but they wind up in Tokyo and create a disaster that spreads across the world, and
Yeah. So okay. So if the original Nier, OG Nier, is kind of more medieval themed, and Nier Automata is sort of like present day to somewhat future, well, definitely future sci-fi. What is the third?
They'll do what the original plan for Dragon Guard 3, which is to call it Dragon Guard 4 and have it be about a student who is looking for the lost Dragon Guard 3.
Sure, that sounds insane enough to
like
work.
Dragon Guard 3, the video game itself, or okay, yeah, sure, why not? Anything is possible.
Complete game of the puppet shows.
Mm-hmm.
It's all puppet shows.
You
gotta do a rhythm game to control the puppets. Yep,
all right.
Sure. Anyway, let's wrap this up. We're getting way off track again, but housekeeping. You can check us out at theglorioblog.com. Currently, you can go read Zig's Kamen Rider write-up on that, first impressions.
And hey, why don't you just go back and reread my Tsukihime review?
Yes, yes, and perhaps someday some Fate Stay Night content.
I mean,
question mark?
We have provided oodles of Fate Stay Night content thus far, my friend.
Yeah, so go check that out. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, all those good things. We got a weirdly low amount of views on the last video. I don't know if I can never predict the algorithm on these things, but you know,
Google hates us.
Go check that out. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch everyone next time.